Let's get into it. Beyond the Scoreboard. We're about to dive deep. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I am your host, Effie James, and as always, I appreciate every single person tuning in on the BTS YouTube channel and our viewers watching with our partner in media, Richland Source, and their platform. I welcome you all to the show. Today's topic is one that is very important and personal for me. The faith community has always been a part of the communities locally and around the world since the beginning of the time. But this conversation goes way beyond what happens within the walls of a church building. We're talking about community. We're talking about impact. We're talking about what happens when faith becomes more than worship service on Sunday morning. Because in times like these, people are looking for more than a good word. They're looking for hope. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for people willing to step into real issues and make a difference. So the question, and today's topic, by the way, is what role should the church play in local communities? Should churches only focus on worship services, or should they also be involved in schools, youth programs, outreach events, neighborhood projects, mentorship? And should they be helping meet the day-to-day needs of the people? Well, today we're sitting down with someone who doesn't just preach about community involvement, he lives it. Our guest today is a respected pastor and community leader whose church has become known for creating opportunities and building relationships. They bring people together through meaningful outreach and impactful events throughout this community. Beyond the pulpit, he has also been actively involved in projects and supports schools, youth initiatives, and community development efforts. He is constantly showing what it looks like when ministry extends beyond Sunday morning. I am honored to welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard the pastor of the Oasis of Love Church here in Mansfield, Pastor Raymond Cochran, Jr. Pastor, it is an honor to have you here, sir. Man, it is, I always think first, I always think of pastors and leaders of churches. In my history growing up in church, I'm a church boy from being raised, and I've always looked at pastors in a way, and I'm like, they're above. I've always seen pastors as this floating entity, man. Yeah. So it has always been nice when I see you. It's always been nice. I always talk to you. You're always approachable, and it's always nice to be able to have conversations with you. And when I see you do things in the community, man, it really is great to see. So you do a great job, not only in the community, but you're so impactful in your church. So again, I thank you so much for being here.
It's
today,
an honor
man.
to be here. You a Mansfield legend, man. Brother Effie. They talk about Brother Effie, the things that you do with our youth and with our young people. I'm just impressed, man. So you know that. I just got so much respect for you and your family and just everything that you do. So when you asked me to come on, it was automatic, had to do that. Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. So I want to, we're going to talk about today's topic, but I want to start today with a question about you. What was your draw to ministry? I know in the faith community, we talk a lot about the calling, and being called, and talk about how you were called to ministry and how ultimately that became to you leading to be a pastor.
Man, that's a great question because my journey was very unique. I grew up with a speech impediment. I stuttered really bad as a kid, and I hated public speaking.
Wow.
I avoided speech class until my senior year in high school because that's how much I hated it. I just didn't want any part of it. And as I grew in the Word and as I got closer to the Lord, I found out about faith. You mentioned that a couple of times in your opening and how when you have faith, you can overcome anything. And I looked at some of our heroes in the Bible. And, Moses had a stammering tongue, but he didn't let that stop him from going forth. So I said, well, hey, if God did it for Moses, he can do it for me because the Bible said he's no respecter of persons. So I started to get more confidence in myself. I started to study the Word more, and then I found out that I had a calling. I felt the urge to preach. I felt the urge to do more with what I was gaining. And my former pastor, Dr. Walt, he trained me up. I was a kid that sat way in the back, the last row of the church. I didn't want to be up front. He kept calling me up front. Hey, come and help me. Come and assist me. Sit up here with me today. And I'd be like, all right. Like, I know what you're doing. Right? But from there, I just started to gain more confidence. I would just assist him where needed. And then, he got ill, as we all know, and had some things going on. And from that standpoint, I had to step up more and assist. And I'll never forget when he called me in the office and he said, "You're the acting pastor." Wow. And that was a shock, because we joked. I said, "Hey, you're like Obama. I'm like Biden. I like being Biden. I don't have to come up where you're at, but he would constantly push me. And I just think he saw the future. Yeah. And, and I'll never forget him for that, for what I learned from him. But that's how my push came from him. And, 7 years later, I can't believe I've been there for that long now in that role. Of course, been there my whole life, church boy like you. Mm-hmm. But, that's where that push really came from.
Wow, man. That's amazing, man. I think that, and you talk about Pastor Walt and I am, he was a man that, I didn't know him very well. I knew of him obviously. Right. But he's one of the people that are like a polarizing figure in the community. Yeah, and if you don't know him, right. You think and right. I remember when I done my first play and, I needed an MC for the play and people were saying like, "Oh, get Pastor Walt." I'm like, man, I can't get, he too busy. He not going to do no little church play. Right. He don't even know me. And so finally I sent him an email or something. It was some kind of random message. And I said, "Pastor Walt, I know," and I'm going through all the particular, "I know you're too busy. Just go ahead and say no. Right. I know you." Man, he said, "Man, I would love to do it. Thank you for asking me. Yeah. I'm going to be now." So we haven't played. All he doing is emceeing. Right, so literally all he had to do is come do the open, welcome people. He is at every rehearsal. He praying us in and out of rehearsal. Yeah. And I was just amazed at just the type of man he was, man. And how, and I felt awful. Yeah. The fact that I thought of him, what I did before I actually met him. Yeah. And just an amazing man. Oh, and I am, he went on to just, and from then on I had him in everything that I was doing. So that makes sense, what you're saying. Yes, sir. Makes sense. Love people. So I want to start by, again, highlighting some of the things you've done. As you talked about, you took over leadership in 2019 for the great Pastor Walter Jordan II. Now, you have since went on to do things like spearhead the Cyclops baseball complex, launched the Daniel School of Business, maintain the community block party. You've recently partnered with WMFD to broadcast services. You held a graduation ceremony for the Legacy School, and that's just the small part of what you do. My first question is, why is community engagement such a big part of your ministry? Why is it so important for you to be out in the community like that?
It's ministry, and I think what we hear on Sunday morning should drive us to go back out into the community. We should really, when we go into church on Sundays, we should look to the left, look to the right, and say, man, who else should be in here with me? Wow. And I think we all have church. We have good church, like we used to say back in the day, but there's a purpose to that. And I think it's to bring somebody else in to experience that. But the thing about now is we're growing up in a different time where a lot of people, they didn't grow up in church like we grew up in church. There's a generation that is unchurched. They didn't have that mom or that uncle or whoever dragging them to church like we were. That's right. But it is our mission to go outside the four walls and reach the community. And how do you do that? Well, you reach families. Well, how do you do that? You reach the children. You reach the parents. You reach the seniors. And in doing that, you bring the family together. And by that, then you minister to them. You show them what love, what care, what hope is. And that, a lot of people fear coming into church because of what they've seen or the stereotypes, but we want to show them Christ's love. And I think that's the big thing at our church is, hey, it's not about, how we do church. What is the church? And let's make sure that we properly show that to people. And when you do that, that's what made Jesus such a great soul winner. He just gave them the word. He was a living word. And if we put the focus on the word opens up the hearts and minds. It reveals, it gives answers, it gives love, it gives healing, so that when people come in those four walls, man, okay, I can be a part of this.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. A lot of churches now, and I think what you're saying is so good. And to be honest, I know a lot of ministries feel the same.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is a lot of churches struggle with balancing that, their ministry trying to keep their people whole,
right.
Their members whole,
right.
And they want to do more.
Right.
And they try to do things in the community and how do you approach, doing all you do in the community and balance your membership and everything you have to do within the church? How do you balance that to make it work?
Man, that's a good one, brother. Because man, I'm like the responses on this one, but you got to prioritize, and that's the big thing I learned. One of the first things God told me when I took over was He said that you're going to have to say no and get used to saying no, because every invitation is not from me, and you have to make sure the foundation is set, and then from there you have to properly build. God placed Nehemiah on top of the wall with a specific assignment to not come down, and the people wanted him to come down for this and to come down for that. And oftentimes in ministry, when God places you up, there's people who want to bring you down.
Yes.
And again, there's, some of them don't mean harm, but hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. But we quickly looked at, okay, what are the main areas of focus? What is God really calling us to do right now? Let's put all our attention into that. Even if we have to say no to these things we said yes to before, it's going to pay off in the long run. Yeah. And from there, by doing that, by keeping the main thing, we've been able to grow the church. We have more families coming in, and we're reaching the youth. Our youth ministry is growing. So we really had to tap into, Lord, what do you want us to focus on? Let's focus on that and build on that. And then when we said yes to God, more doors started to open. Then all of a sudden we get this call. And now the Lord is saying, because you moved here, now I've opened this up. And so it's really just following God's voice. And sometimes that can be difficult when people, even within the church, want you to, we've always done it like this, or, we want you to do it like this. And, God's not saying that right now. Right. And having to hold true to that. But I'm glad I stuck with God. And now we're on a path where I think we're going up. And I'm grateful. I'm humbled by what He's doing. But I know it's only by faith and trusting in His word and not man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's excellent, man. And you touched on, the needs and how important it is to kind of identify the needs. When you look at the community, we look at the Mansfield community, and, I know there's a lot of needs in the Mansfield community and how you prioritize. Well, what do you see as some of the higher needs that the community, number one, the community has, and some of those needs that the churches or that the church as a whole can help the community address?
Yeah, as you know, man, since COVID, it's been hard. It's been tough on a lot of people. Even now, gas prices and just everything is high, inflation and everything. So a lot of people are struggling to eat. A lot of people are struggling to find education, clothes on their backs. So from that standpoint, the Lord impressed upon me, the church needs to be open, just not on Sundays. The church is a hospital. The church is a vehicle for change. He told me that the church is the most powerful entity in the world. Ooh. And I said, Lord, what do you mean? He said, when we're about our Father's business, there isn't anything that we can't do. And Jesus showed that when He walked this earth, there wasn't anything that He could not do. So from that standpoint, that's where the business school came up, because it's like, okay, people need education. All right. They have that idea, they have that vision, but they might not know how to piece it together. Or if there might be somebody more established who has a business, but they haven't gotten it to go to that next level. Well, let's introduce the Daniel School of Business. Daniel was 10 times better, smarter than the rest. Why was that? Because he was going off God's knowledge. So he was in a whole nother class. Nobody was even touching this guy because he was going off the word of God. So let's create a business school where we introduce the word. Put the word in your business. Get a prayer network going in your business, and watch the innovation go to another level. Because he said, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. So he's telling you, I'm on another level, but you can come up to where I'm at. And when you go up into 4D, it's like you're going into another dimension.
Right.
You hear things, you see things that you haven't heard or seen before. And a lot of times when you do what God calls you to do, then they come back and say, well, where did you get that from? And you say, man, the Lord. They say, no. Where did you get that from? And you tell them, it's God. He'll drop something in you if you come up to where he is. So from there, the business school, and I might be jumping, and I apologize.
Absolutely. No, that's fine, because that was my next question.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Cyclops, that was another one too. It's like I drove out there, and the Lord said something could be done here. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the youth. We talk about Mansfield used to be this, or, we used to have that. Let's build it back up. Let's mentor the youth. Let's have something for them, games, activities. Let's bring them together. Let's teach them about life and how to value life and how to be there for your brother and your sister. So from there, it just took off. Yeah.
It's amazing, man, because I think that what you're discussing how your faith is, directed. That's what faith is. Yeah. I remember being in a Bible study one time, and I asked, people talk about, what is faith? And, faith is not only, asking, but it's believing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one thing to say,
yeah.
I believe, but then acting on that faith is a complete other thing. And what you're explaining is how you're acting on, what God is telling you to believe.
Because a lot of people won't act.
Yeah.
They know it. Man, God told me to do that. But I just, they'll think this, or how's that going to look? Don't think about that.
All right, you all in my business. All right, that's enough.
I hear you. But you have to, faith acted upon brings results. Yeah. Just like right now, we could be in this room right now with the lights off. You know where the light switch is. Yeah. But if you don't act on what you know and go over and flip the switch, we'll remain in the dark. And that's what I tell people. Faith without works is dead. So you have to have that type of faith in God, the God kind of faith, where you move no matter what. And that can be tough if you grow up in a setting or an atmosphere where everybody's kind of, but to step out and you say, no, Lord, I'm going to do it. That's when special things happen. So, yeah. That's
excellent, man. I know you work a lot with youth. I'm myself an educator, as it relates to our youth and education, I know you're big on education, and faith-based programs and messaging it can be tough, particularly in public schools, trying to get that message in schools with different laws and things, separation of church and state and all of that. So how can churches and faith leaders like yourself really help support schools and school systems getting truly what they need, being honest, into the schools, with the barriers that come with getting it, particularly public schools. How can you do that, and how do you get around those barriers?
That's a great question. I think partnerships are key. I think trust is key. And being honest is key. A lot of times we get calls to. There's a lot of issues with kids these days. A lot of the stuff that we had coming up, they didn't have.
For sure.
And a lot of times we get calls to help. Well, we say, well, we can help, but also know we're a faith-based, church. So if we come in, can we also pray? And that is, and that kind of sets the tone of, then we hosted a Legacy Academy graduation. We were happy to do that because it gives us the opportunity to show faith, to show Christ, to show love. But I think programs and initiatives, the church has to be willing to go inside the schools, just not talk about how bad it is or, the kids are doing this. No, if you're the church, you need to show them something different. And a lot of times it's you showing up where they are, just not sitting back on your recliner, looking at the news, talking about it, but go in there, talk to them, and a lot of those kids, a lot of times they just need you to be there. And I think from there, you you meet the faculty, you meet the teams, you meet the leaders like yourself. And it's like, well, man, what else can we do, to partner and to reach? But you have to be willing to step in, step out of what you know and step into their world. And I think that's what made Jesus so great. He would go anywhere. Right. He didn't stay playing in one area. Right. He was always on the move, but he was able to connect with so many people. But we have to have that mindset to reach.
For sure.
Yeah.
When I think about, working with young people, specifically like the preteens all the way up through teenage people, I have seen, they deal with a level of distraction and obviously social media and depression and mental health issues like at no other generation has had to deal with.
Right.
So when you think about how we can help just in general the youth and getting that message to them amidst all the distractions that they are I can't even closed in.
Right.
Beyond the school, as an educator, we have ways that we try to do things. But beyond that, there are things that churches, I feel, can do. What do you think the church can do to try to help those young people stay motivated and lead them to Christ, or lead them in a way that says, hey, I can do better. I want to be better.
Right. We have to build programs and stop our programs.
Yeah.
I know we get used to our routine and our traditions, but we're losing a generation if we don't involve them. We're losing a generation if we don't make a point of contact. So I know, for instance, we have the youth summer camp coming up at the Crown. It's going to be June 8th through June 11th, and we're going to have games, activities. There's going to be some Bible lessons involved as well, but we're partnering with the different groups, NECIC, UMADOP, YMCA, the Friendly House, Richland County Youth Council, you name it. We're trying to bring all the kids together, and I think that's the start. Let's just break bread.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, shaking the Bible in your face.
Right.
But let's just come and break bread. Let's have a good time. Let's fellowship. And then I think that opens up conversation, communication. You're able to learn, and then you can impact. And I think from there you can kind of see what's needed. Okay, we see this with, the boys, this with the ladies. What programs? Who can we talk to? And again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, too. Sometimes it's finding those people who can come in and help and assist. So, but programs, you got to have things for them to do, things to bring them together, and then have a plan. I think that's the key. You got to have a plan of what you want to do with them, and then from there, God will map it out for you.
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I think, and you yourself have been involved in different programs and different settings outside of the church, obviously.
Yeah.
And I know it can kind of be difficult for you personally, and it could have a toll on you. But why do you think it's so important for not only yourself but leaders to be so visible in the community and just be seen, not only being a leader of your church, but outside the walls? Why do you think that's so important for you to be seen and visible in the community?
When you're a leader in the community, like it or not, when people see you, they see hope. They get encouraged. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm humbled by this. I just know it's the Lord, but just going to the grocery store, people are excited to see you.
Wow.
Walking into the school, the kids are excited to see you. If they know you as a leader in the community, it often brings encouragement. Chances are when they see you, they're hoping to hear something, And I think, to answer your question, you have to be that. You have to accept that as well. When you're a leader, you can't say, I don't want the intent. No, it's kind of like that's what comes with the territory.
That's right.
When you step into these leadership roles, the microscope is on you, and people are watching what you do. They're watching how you act. They're watching how you talk. And I think that's very important to remember. But in knowing that, now it's like when I go out, who can I encourage? If I come across a smiling face, if I come across somebody, what can I leave with them? What can I say to them? Wow. So I think to be willing to be that speaks volumes. And then people are, well, okay, now where are you from?
Yeah.
Okay, now who do you represent? Yeah. Okay, but that one seed that you plant that day could grow. Somebody else might come and water it, but it's a seed that you planted in them to stay encouraged, to keep that hope. So
that's excellent.
Yeah.
That is excellent. I think, one of the things in about that when I look at the church and the history of the church, particularly the Black church in the United States, people always think about how important it was during the Civil Rights Movement and how effective and strong the Black church was. And one of the things that I see and many people see is it feels like that voice is not as strong and powerful as it once was. I grew up in where, like we talked about, how church was a foundation of the church, of the home. Right. It was ingrained into our weekly schedule. We had Sunday service all day. We had 3 or 4 all services a week. Yeah. That's kind of how it went. And it feels like that now those things, you hear those things more as a punchline than real life. And I remember I've done a write-up on Mother Blevins, when she became a jurisdictional supervisor. And I asked her, I said, what's going to be your mission when you take over? And she said, I want to bridge immediately. She answered quick. She said, my biggest mission, the first thing I want to do, I want to bridge the gap. I want to bring our younger generations back to the church. And I said, Mom, how do you plan to do that? You know what I mean? How do you plan to do that? And she said 2 things. She said, first, we got to listen to them. We got to listen to the things that they are saying, because we have, sometimes we just kind of don't listen to their issues. She said, but also we got to kind of let go of some of our traditions that we have in the church, that we have hold so tight to. We don't have to change the word. The word is going to be the word no matter what. But our tradition sometimes we have held tight to, and some of those things can be off-putting to some of the younger generations. And I was just so blown away by that. And so my question to you is, what are your thoughts on when it comes to that intergenerational gap that exists in making sure the church continues to be a voice, and it can be a place where all generations can still come and gather, and that voice can still be powerful?
I agree with Mama B. You got to be progressive. You have to be willing to change. I think that's just time. That history shows that you have to be willing to change. You have to adapt. You can't get caught in a cycle. You got to break those cycles. You got to look at new pieces being added in and not making it a country club. And I think at times, that's how some people view church. It's like a country club. Man, I can never fit in there. But we have to show them what's available. We have to show them that, no, this is for everyone, just not a selected few. But outside of that, we also have to make sure that we don't focus too much on self-promotion. I think this is the age where, the Apostle Paul said in the last days, many would preach the gospel out of selfish ambition. Many people would do things for self-gain, self-righteousness. And more so than our words, children see our actions. So we could say one thing, but they're watching us. And kids know when it's real love and when it's fabricated. Kids know when it's just words to tickle your ears, or if it's actually you're trying to make an impact. So I think we got to be real. You mentioned the Civil Rights Movement. It was real because of what we were doing, what we were suffering. It was real love. It's people coming together to genuinely help somebody come out, racism and all these things going on. And I think in this era, we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from the principles, from the foundations. We've gotten away from the word in some instances where it's, I never forget this. This preacher was saying he went to a believers convention, but he didn't feel the presence of God nowhere. Wow! And he said, "God, where you at?" He looked around, he didn't feel nothing. Then the Holy Spirit got his eyes, and he looked out in the crowd, and there were people on their phones. Wow! People like talking, having side conversations, and the word said, "By those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy. I must be glorified." That word means to make glorious. It means to bestow honor. So I think we have to bring honor of God back in our churches. And when we do that, it creates a picture to those outside the church of who God is. And when they see who God is, they'll come. They'll inquire. And that's what we have to do with our young people. Quit telling them how we do church. Show them what the church is. Because, again, when they come into church, they want answers. They want to know, what is this?
Yeah.
How does this apply to me? And for me coming up, the church was a place where I could discover my purpose. I don't know if you can find that in a lot of churches now.
Yeah.
I think you see, I'll say, some shows and some spectacles.
For sure.
But we have to make sure that we're showing them God.
Right.
And I think there's a disconnect with that. They don't know who God is in the church like we've known who God is in the church.
Yeah.
So.
Man, that's good. I think, for me, in my experience, I was, the church was like put in me like a grinder. Like, this is what it is.
Right.
I don't care what you think. And, so I remember when I got to be a teenager, I had a mixed relationship.
Sure.
My relationship with the church became different. And I was like, I get it. I got it. I got it. And I remember this vividly. I remember being about 14 or 15, thinking in my mind, as soon as I'm old enough to get away from this church, I'm doing it.
Man, you ain't the only one.
And I promise you, and I did. As soon as I went off to college, I got 18, I went off to college, and I bet I stopped going to church for some years, man.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because nothing happened to me. I ain't had no church hurt or nothing like that.
Right.
I was just I had the choice.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I had the choice not to go to church. And I didn't.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So my relationship, and so what brought me back to the church, though, was life. And that what was instilled in me during all that time.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And so that is it
never left
you know what I mean? It never left.
Right.
So my message when I tell people, when I see, young parents struggling that are in the church and they struggling with their kids, I just tell them, just bring them.
That's it.
Just bring them. They will be fine. I know they may not want to come and they may be there but bring them. You know what I mean? That message will stay with them.
Oh yeah. And that's what I tell people too, is just being there.
Yeah.
They might come in kicking and screaming, but just if you train them up in the way that they should go, when they're older, they won't depart. They might veer off. Like you said, it's like, okay, I'm older now, I'm going to do my thing. Just like the prodigal son.
For sure.
He was trained up by his father, and Jesus said when he got older, I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah.
Give me my inheritance. I want to live how I want to live. He went out there, he experienced it. Then he fell low, and then he remembered what was instilled in him.
That's right.
And he said, I will return back to my father's house.
That's
and
right.
I think that's what's happening now. With everything that's going on, you still see people coming back. And I think that's what was instilled in them. So we got to make sure with our young people, like you said, we instill that.
That's right.
Because that's what's kept us there.
That's right.
We were very strict, raised up, but we're here. We're still here.
That's right.
And I think that's because of what's in us.
Wow. I'm often, especially with folks like yourself and other pastors who just seemingly keep going and keep going. And I'm just like, what motivates you? Now you are, you're a family man, husband, father, you got little ones. You know what I mean? What motivates you? And ministry can be difficult. Now that I know. I don't want to,
No, you're right.
But I know ministry can be difficult. What motivates you to keep serving in the midst of everything that happens in life and in church and all the things that can happen? What motivates you to keep going?
No, that's real. That's a great question. Wise counsel. I think you can't get to the point where you minister to others that you can't be ministered to yourself. And I think, as ministers, we pour out so much, but we also need the word for ourselves too.
Sure.
So while I'm studying to deliver a word, I need to make sure that I'm getting the word, that it's just not, work with God, but it's also time with God. And then I think having that structure around you, my wife is amazing. She prays for me. She holds me up in prayer. She's a helpmate. And, obviously my children are, I just look at their faces and I'm inspired. But one of the biggest things also that drives me is also seeing people find real change. When you minister the word and you hear testimonies, and when you minister the word and you hear people being encouraged or coming up and being better, that's what drives you to keep going. And like you said, it's tough seasons of ministry where it's like, Lord, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I don't feel like they're getting it. I don't feel like this is going anywhere. But it's in those moments where his grace kicks in. And I tell people, I know it's the grace of God, because not Pastor Ray J would have went off. Not Pastor Ray J would have. But being pastor, it's a mantle that falls on you, but it's also something that you quickly realize, okay, I'm called to this because, man, I can deal with that. Or, okay, Lord, I still feel a safety net in you. So I think being grounded and having your own personal time outside of just preaching, but your own personal time really helps to keep you grounded. And then having that wise counsel around you. You got to have people in your life who can also encourage you, because, you see pastors commit suicide. You see pastors leave the gospel out of, after 4 or 5 years, they're done. But I just think it's a strong relationship, and also that team around you that also helps you to keep going. Yeah,
that's excellent, man. I that part is and I know that is critical, and I think that some people in all facets of life miss that. You know what I mean? I think you feel like I'm blessed, I'm called to do this, but a lot of people miss the fact that no matter how gifted and how called and how blessed you are, you gotta have that support. Because
Jesus did it. He had to break away. Times the disciples couldn't find him because he said, "Man, I gotta go in prayer time." Because I seen 5 things a day where you gotta have your own time in the Lord, and it's very important to you staying in the Lord, staying committed, staying in the race. We're running a race too. And I think a lot of times people look at pastors like, man, they're supposed to be perfect. You're not supposed to have any issues. No, I'm human just like you. We struggle just like you. And it's not an excuse or anything, but I'm just saying, recognize that, what you need, I need also. So, and if you look at that, I think you'll look at things different.
And I'm gonna tell you that alone is what drew me to my own Pastor Blevins. I didn't, like I told you, my view of pastors was like they were a hovering being. Yeah. And when I met him, when I started going to Latter Rain, one of the first messages he preached was about. He talked about his shortcomings and how not only did he struggle, but he was yet struggling with things. And I was sitting there like, what did you say?
Like, what did he say? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that right there, and then afterwards I was talking to him, and I talk to people about my relationship with pastors and how I'm like, it's like the sun. You it's powerful, but you don't look at it. Right. And I remember thinking like, I can talk to my pastor. You know what I mean? Like I'll call my pastor right now, and we just talk and laugh about it. And that's the relationship. Real, and I think and I see that in yourself, and I see that in a lot of pastors now. Yeah. For sure. And because you have to be that, and that's so important, bro. Yeah. That is so important. Yeah. When you look back years from now, and when you're able to look back on your ministry and all the work that you do, what will you want to say, and what will you hope will be the lasting impact that you have on the community and your church and the Oasis ministry under Pastor Cochran? Yeah. What would you want people to be able to say, like, under his leadership, the Oasis was this for this community? What would you want that legacy to be?
That's a loaded one. That's a good one. I would want people to say that they found out who they are in Christ and what they possess. Wow. I would want people to say that Pastor Ray J was committed to giving them his all every time he got up behind that podium. I look at ministry as a blessing, not as a platform for self-promotion or anything like that, but it's an honor to preach the gospel. So anytime that you have the honor to do that, you're dealing with God's people. And I want people to know that I genuinely cared for them, and I wanted every person who I was ministering to leave with something. I want every person to know that, I loved them, I cared for them, and I wanted to see them win. I didn't want to lose one. I wanted to see everybody win. And I want people to look at Oasis and say that we were a church that was in the community, that was about God's people, that fed the poor, clothed the needy, that brought forth education. But most importantly, we taught the word. Yeah. They gave the word. They gave the foundation. So if people can say things like that, then I know that we've done well. Wow. And, that's what the Oasis Foundation is about as well. It's just about giving back. Yeah. Let's go into our neighborhoods, our communities, and let's impact change. Let's not just talk about it. Let's do something. So to have programs like that, let's just do what we can to help people at every turn, because so many people need it. Yeah. And that's what I would want people to say.
That is awesome, man. The work that you have done and all the initiatives and things that you're doing in the community is great. I couldn't. We would be here for days and days about that. Lastly, and I know we talked. You and I were talking off, but I can't let you go without. You're a Cavs fan. I know this, and
all Ohio.
Just in your view, I know we are. Here we are. We are in the conference finals. Yeah. So there's only so much complaining we could do.
Right.
Our first since LeBron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I remember thinking to myself, only Cavs fans could be up 20 points with 5 minutes to go. And all of us in Ohio, I felt us still be nervous.
Oh, yeah.
At that last in game one. So what's going on? You tell me. Just in your view, what's going on with the Cavs, and how can we get out of this mess?
Man, sometimes when it's tight, you just everything falls apart. And I think in that moment, like you said, I think every Cavs fan in Ohio sat there like, man, here we go. What's wrong? Here we go. What are you talking about? Here we go. We knew it. We knew it. We have to get over the hump of, this is always Cleveland. I think the players feel it, and then they forget how to play. It's like the Space Jam movie where they going against the Monstars, and they took their powers. It's just like, what's going on, y'all? I mean, we gotta close this game out.
Right.
And I think sometimes you don't see that passion. Like,
right.
This is New York. The crowd is roaring. They're coming. They want this game. They woke up now, and we have to step up and finish this. Not sit back. See, now y'all seen how I am at home. Y'all don't see this on Sunday. This is how I was. Like, what are we doing? This isn't an exhibition game. This is the Eastern Conference Finals. Let me remind you where we're at. We're at the Mecca of basketball right now. New York City. Celebrity Row right there. Everybody standing up. What you gonna do now? And I didn't see nothing. I didn't see no effort. I didn't see no timeouts. I didn't see no adjustments. I didn't see nobody coming out the game. And I had about 3 or 4 people that should have came out. That's the depression that you're speaking to. That's the pain and the agony when we got to wake up on Sunday morning. I didn't even turn on first take. I had plans to turn on first take, but the last 7 minutes, what I witnessed, couldn't turn it on. And like you, I said, you know what? I can't even start the game.
I'm not watching it.
I'm sorry. I know I just... You bring up sports. You bring up Cavs, Browns, Buckeyes. We could talk all day. Brother Effie, we can go all day on this.
I'm telling you, I can't. But I'm gonna say this. I know that's a trigger. That is a trigger for me too. I get it.
I meant to answer your question.
But no. I get it. Yeah. But we gonna say this. And you're a man of faith. Yeah. So we are both men of faith. So we are going. We don't agree that they're gonna do the best that they can.
Yeah, that's it.
And we got game 3.
Game 3,
and it's a must win.
Yeah.
And even though I'm not gonna watch it. You might watch it. I'm still on strike. I'm still on hurt from game one, so I ain't watching it.
I'm thinking because they're at home, I can maybe start out.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, you send me a message and let me know whether it's okay to watch, because I ain't watching it.
Yeah.
Man, it has been an incredible conversation, man. I am so amazing. Grateful to have you,
grateful for you
today, man. And not only just to have you here, but your willingness to step outside and just be that visible as a faith leader and a pastor to do things in the community, man. That is should be commended at all levels. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. And again, to my audience, thank you all for being here. What an awesome discussion with Pastor Ray J. And I'll be right back with today's final thought. So today's conversation reminds us that the church has always been at its best when it becomes more than just a building people visit once a week. Real ministry happens when people are encouraged and uplifted spiritually and practically. No matter what denomination someone belongs to, or even whether they attend regularly, I think most people would agree that communities become stronger when organizations and leaders genuinely invest in people. That's what stood out to me today in the discussion, the importance of being there, being present in schools, present in neighborhoods, present during difficult times, wherever that may be. The church has to be a source of hope, unity, and healing in communities that are so often searching for all of those things. So hopefully today's episode sparks some conversation and maybe even inspiration for others to get involved and make a difference where they are. So to Pastor Cochran, thank you again for joining us. And to everybody watching and listening, thank you for your continued support. Make sure you remember to like and subscribe below, and also become a follower on the Beyond the Scoreboard Facebook page. Go ahead and share this episode and leave a comment letting us know what your thoughts are on today's topic. And until next time, I'm Effie James, and we'll see you again on Beyond the Scoreboard.